Are you talking about on the number line or solving it? Okay, I'm gonna pause that and I'll see if what we do is matching what you're saying. Fill in this with what the sign means in 20 seconds. Great. And Sean, that's your first. Daniel, you are also, you talked also, so we'll be fair. You both have one. Make sure to raise your hand if you want to contribute or have a comment. Solve the inequality, number 1. We don't need to graph this one just yet. I'm going to solve this in the same way. What's my first move to solve? And then tell me how I might set it up. Turn and talk, brainstorm, 20 seconds, go. How would I set it up? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Love how row 3 has team members who are immediately going to tracking and hands on desk or pencil when that bell rings. Let's try it one more time. We're going to practice it blah blah for 5 seconds. I want 100% tracking, hands on pencil or desk. Turn and talk, blah blah blah. Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is much better. Thanks for being attentive right at the bell. So what do I do first? And it's going to look kind of messy. Logan?
I'm going to time 3 over 1.
Ooh, that is a good suggestion. If you agree with that, silent yes. If you disagree, silent no. There's a few in row 4. Nora, what would you do? You would subtract 1/3. Okay, so let's think about that. Would I multiply that or subtract it? Those are your two options. You get to vote. Here's option 2, is we're going to subtract. Show me on 2, 1, 2. You don't have to double tap to show me. Okay, I see a few 2s and I see a few people kind of going back and forth, a few 1s as well. What would I do to both sides? Kate, which one would you go with? You'd subtract it. And the reason I don't want to multiply this guy is because it's not dividing by 1/3. It is adding 1/3. So I do the opposite of adding it. I'm going to subtract it. 1 minus 1/3 is going to look like our little village fight, and 1 needs to be borrowed from. 1/3 doesn't have any good guys to fight. We're going to borrow from the 1 and make it 3 over 3. 2/3 is your answer. But then you have a 2k over here. What do I do with the 2? Because it's 2 times k, Sean 2, Jameson 1. When you divide 2 on both sides, this is what happens. You get 2/3 divided by 2. This looks like a really funky fraction. It's called a complex fraction, and you could also write it like this. 2/3 divided by 2 over 1. Write that on your paper now. Really tricky step to go from 2/3 to 2/3 divided by 2 over 1. That's going to help us solve it. Okay, let's KFC it. Keep flip change. Keep the first. 2/3 stays the same. Flip the second and change to multiply. Simplify this for me, Mason. What can I cross cancel? One times 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. So your answer for this should be k is greater than 1/3. Box it. A lot of tricky steps in there that kind of make our brains hurt. Just hang with me and we're going to need to persevere a bit through this because it does get complicated. Let's try example 2. You have an ugly looking inequality again, but we don't discriminate against fractions or decimals. We're going to solve them because each fraction and decimal deserves to have their own problem. Start out by subtracting 4.3. I needed more room here for sure. Let's do some scratch work over here. Make a little box for yourself. 10 minus 4.3. Where does my decimal go with the 10? If it doesn't have one, I still want to make a snowman. Where would it go? Mason. Right after the 10. And then a filler 0. Good. Let's subtract. 0 minus 3 I can't do. 0 minus 4 I can't do. I'm going to borrow from the 0 and make a 10. I still can't do 0 minus 3. I'm going to borrow from the 10 and make a 9. 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 4 is 5. That is the simplified decimal. Bring down your negative 1.5. Okay. Last ugly step to complete until we get hopefully a not so ugly answer. What do I do to this left side? Avery. Just 1.5? Negative 1. Okay. And let's do it some scratch work again. What goes in the house, Leah? 5.7 or 1.5? Good. If you are on top of society, you get a house. Negative 1.5 goes out. Let's move the decimal. Move the decimal. How many times does 15 fit into 57 without going over? You might have to guess and check on this. Max, what do you think? What's the answer for 15 times something to 57? 15 goes in 3 times. Let's start with the 3. We'll get to the 8 later. 15 times 3 is 45. That works, but there's going to be a remainder. 7 minus 5 is 2. 5 minus 4 is 1. There's your decimal. Daniel. 15 goes into 120 9 or 8 times. You think it's 8? Let's just guess and check real quick. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 1 is 1 plus 4 is 12. If I'm going too fast for you, you can give me a thumb down. We're all at different levels with decimals or fractions, so you can go at your own pace when you hit bronze. I'm going to kind of keep it a little quick for notes. There's the 3.8. What's my blender? Really? Okay, I do have 2 blenders. Max, what's my first one? Okay. Good. You can mark it because I actually didn't catch my negative. Jameson, mark 1 blender. It's a negative and it gets flipped. Questions on that? Why do I flip the sign again?
Because the number that has the variable in it is negative.
Good. Corbin, add on to it. And that's what I would say. Great language. Thanks. We're going to graph this guy. So go up to this number line hidden in all of your great work. We're going to go to negative 3.8. There's only one problem. There's no negative 3.8 on here. You're going to choose one of these lines to put negative 3.8. When you're given decimals, you're likely going to have to create your own number line. So from negative 3.8, I'm going to go over 1 spot. And from 1 over, it would be negative 3.7 if I'm counting towards 0. If I go to the left, it's going to be 1 more in the negative, negative 3.9. So if they have a blank number line, start with the number that you got for the answer, and then go 1 left and 1 right. That's all you have to do. Pac-Man's got a chin. Fill a circle in. Go to the right. There's your graph. Next page, yeah. For what? Oh, a few of you put your thumb up, which is great. I will take the encouragement, sure. So it means I'm going at an excellent pace. Last example. Okay, another ugly looking inequality. Mason, track the boards. We're going to start by moving the 8. Let's subtract 8 on both sides. 2 minus 8 is negative 6. Bring down the negative 4 over 3. When you have a fraction in front of a variable, there's a trick. It means to multiply 4/3 by h, but there's one step I can take to get rid of negative 4 over 3. If you remember that step, raise your hand. Chad, by what number? If you have a fraction, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of negative 4 over 3 is negative 3 over 4. Do that to both sides. Times negative 3 over 4. If you put something in parentheses next to a number, it just means multiply. You can cross out the 4's with the 4's, the 3's with the 3's, and h is by itself. I multiplied by a negative. What do I do to the sign? Lauren. The sign would be positive over here, but the inequality, let me be clear, is flipped. Good. Let's do some scratch work. I have a negative 3 over 4 times a negative 6 over 1. Before I multiply across, could I cross cancel anything, Justice? Great. 2 goes into 4 how many times? 2 goes into 6? 3. Negative 3 times 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 1 is 2. Two bad guys. Same good, different bad. Okay. You have 9 over 2, which we could simplify to be... Daniel? Yeah. Great, let's graph it. Go up to one section in the middle, put 4.5. The next section, one up from 4.5, would be 5. Add a half to that. One below it would be 4. 4, 4.5, 5. You could keep going if you want to, but I only need 3 numbers. Pac-Man has a chin or no chin? No chin. It is an open circle. Does it go left or right? Turn and talk to your partner. Go. And why? Ooh, there's debate. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Debate amongst row 3 and 4. What do you think, Sean? Okay. That's a really good tool only if the H is on the left side. Remember that trick? That if the H is on the right, you have to rewrite the H. Instead of it pointing to the left, now that I rewrote it, track the boards. I paused us too early. That was my fault. I should have let you discuss it more. I heard great discussions in row 1. Are we ready? Okay, instead of going to the left, which direction should the arrow point? To the right. Because it's greater than, it says H is bigger than 4.5, it goes to the right. Lauren, did you have questions? Or Avery? Did you have questions whole class, or did you get it answered? Because I wanted to get H by itself. So 4 over 3 was attached to it, and when you multiply the opposite fraction, you cross cancel everything and make it go away. Do you see how that can work? And everything's a 1. Cool. Okay, a lot of messy inequalities. You have 2 that you're going to try on your own the next 3 minutes. Silent work for 3. Then you'll get a chance to tackle bronze with your partner. Yeah.
Or we just cross-cancel things?
It's a rule in math that the opposite inverse operations can cancel out. So if you have 4 over 1 times 1 over 4, this is like taking 1/4 of the number 4. So if I have 4 wholes, right? And this is like 4 things, and you want to take one-fourth of that group. Well, if you take 1/4 of the group of 4, you'd be left with 1. So it's just like kind of
But if we had this normal math problem, like 6 minus 3, could we then add 3 and then times?
no. It only works for inverse operations. When I'm multiplying and dividing, if I have opposite numbers that are being divided to a multiplication problem, you can cross cancel. So I'm not really doing anything new here. I'm just taking the 4s and I'm saying that they're being divided to a multiplication problem, and so you can divide each by 4. I did the same thing to both. You could, I guess, like add 3 to this and add 3 to this, and it'd be 9 minus 6, which is the same thing. Do you see that? So I guess you could do that if you're just going to change the problem a bit. I'll try to find a better video, Tessa. That was a confusing explanation. There are better ways.